Anytime you're ready. Fucking stupid recording piece of shit. Um, Anybody who's watched more than one of my videos now, and there's like maybe two people on the planet that have, uh, I don't care. But eventually this will get to be a little bit more serious. I'm just sort of feeling out my oats, like I do believe in doing as far as an art is concerned. I don't think you come to something and just automatically know it. You know, all these fucking assholes who think they're what they call influencers. Oh, they should go suck their own cocks or lick their own pussies, depending on how you want to. Yeah, this is not a PG-13 movie, is it? Um. Anyway, the more I listen to all the shit that people say, and it is shit. There's just like loads and loads and loads of shit about everything. Not just about writing, but about every fucking thing. Like when sometimes I mean sometimes when people get interviewed, just because they're supposed to be an expert because they wrote a book that became famous. Um, they're supposed to be an expert, and they're supposed to be the people who can tell you the way to do what they did. No, it's totally impossible. I mean, I'm going to qualify this in several different ways. One way is J.K. Rowling. Now, it's really interesting to listen to J.K. Rowling talk about writing and how she went about it. Because she is dead nuts on as one of the most down to earth goddamn superstars that I've ever heard from. I don't like admitting that. I'm not particularly. I mean, the books were great. The movies, well, the books were good. The books were good, not great. The movies were great, um, which is a collaborative effort, and that makes a whole different animal. Um, but then there's superstars who can just write shit. I mean, right now she could probably write any she could write her I don't know. I went to a trip by the sea and fucking like write some boring piece of crap, and she'll get it published, no question about it. I mean, who would not salivate over that as a minor publishing house? But then there's Stephen King, and I keep using these two people as this, sort of the raconteurs. Is that exactly the right word I'm looking for? Um, the people who are most well recognized and lead the way. And Stephen King, I'm not sure if he's got that big an imagination. And for the number of books that he's written, I would have cut out half of them. Just fucking. I'm trying to stop saying the fucking word, but I can't. Uh, I would have just thrown most of them away. That was very nice. You see the way that almost seemed like I wanted to do that. So there's J.K. Rowling, who actually worked at and thought about what she was trying to do. I'm sure Stephen King did too, but there are so many hacks that follow down that same fucking line, where they're just gluing macaroni on a page and going, oh, look at the pretty, this is the macaroni tree, Grandma. Well, what's Grandma going to say when they fucking see the macaroni tree? Grandma's going to say, hoo, that's a beautiful macaroni tree. Are you feeling your Italian roots? And we stick to the fucking. Sorry, I mumble to myself sometimes, like, the character Popeye? Popeye, way back in the 50s, I think, when he was created, used to mumble under his breath those things that he actually thought while he was speaking out loud. It was one of the best parts of the character that they did away with later on when my kid became a child, and she didn't get to experience Popeye because Popeye sucked by the time that she was a kid. Anyway, what is a writer supposed to do? Writer, when you're writing. A person who is writing, I won't call myself a writer. I won't do it. And all you people who do just suck. You're pretentious pieces of shit who want to live the life of some dream of something that you have in your head that's, equivalent to Hemingway blowing his brains out on the back of, whatever the hell they fucking landed on. You have a romantic vision of this stupid fucking thing that doesn't matter. What matters, and what you won't understand, is what the reader thinks. Here is a short story by Richard. One of the most enlightening fucking things that I ever did in my entire life, as far as writing was concerned, well, might have been one of the most enlightening things I've ever done in my life. I was due, in my first short story class, I was due to hand in my short story, and I was supposed to give a reading of it, and then the class was supposed to critique my short story. No problem there, I thought. I had weeks to go. I was not one of the first kids. I was like right in the middle of the block, and I thought about it a lot. I planned out the story, I outlined the whole thing, and it was a brilliant outline. Like the outline. Then I went to write it. Couldn't write it. Had no interest in fucking putting a word down on page. The night before, this is the absolute truth, night before the fucking thing was due, I said to myself, this isn't working out very well. And instead, I wrote a story about a dog across the street, except instead of the dog across the street, I put a human, into the position of the dog. The dog was a husky, lived outside 365 days a year, as far as I could tell, chained by its neck to a post in the yard. I don't think I lived in the nicest community in the world. It was somewhere in upstate New York near a college, and it was not necessarily inhabited by people that were always human. Look up the word Meluskion. Anyway, and most people, if you don't have to look that word up, motherfuck, you're in my head. But what makes an interested reader? And why was I telling that story? Well, the really interesting thing that went on there was that within one night, I had to write approximately about 3,000 words, and I had to get it done by morning, and then bring it down to get it printed so that it was ready for class time. So I had to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning with my mimeograph, and had it run through the machines, print it off, and ready to pass around to class. So I wanted to accomplish that so as not to screw up my very good grade point average, and did it. Well, when it got time to reading the story, the most amazing thing happened. I sat in the back of the class, because that's where I always lived, in the back of the class. And it's sort of like here on YouTube, I live in the back of the class. I'm not really here to promote myself as like, some messiah or some goddamn thing. You need to sit in front of the class because he's a teacher. Fuck that shit. Sat in the back of the class and I read my story while people were paging through it, which was sort of always humorous to me to listen to that. You know, you have a classroom of people turning pages while you're hitting your own page and you're going. That ended up being my master's thesis, I swear to God. I'll explain that later. But I read through the whole thing and I got to the end. And now what happens in those classes, a creative writing class, is generally you're not allowed usually to speak about your own work until after everybody's had their word. The point being that they're supposed to be able to just execute any all their ideas without being interrupted. You don't have you shouldn't feel insulted. You should learn to take a tick. In other words, somebody's sitting there batting you up the side of the head with their critique and making you try and feel like a shitty writer. Well, you take it. That's something you learn in art school. And then there's the other people who like come dead on and just go like, oh, I don't know how you spell this word wrong. The writing has so little to do with spelling. That's yet another video. Spelling and punctuation. If you need to like take a pill. All the people who think like, oh, follow the Chicago Manual of Style. Do you know when the Chicago Manual of Style was written? And when was English invented? Put those two things together and stick that in your mind and fucking try and figure out why you're following the Chicago Manual of Style. Duh. Language is an art. It is not a science. That may be one of the most profound fucking things I say in this video. Anyway. In order to interest the reader, you have to be interested in what you are saying. And that goes for both fiction and non-fiction. If you're writing about shit that you don't care about, you know what it's going to sound like? It's going to sound like those little fucking muted, crappy fucking things that when you're walking through the supermarket, you hear the supermarket announcement going, hi, especially, no, and it's actually funny here for me because like it happens in a different language, so I really, really don't have to pay attention to it. And they just say, hi, on aisle 3, there's a fucking piece of shit that you don't want and you'll never want, but the advertiser is paying us money in order for you to listen to this, so we get money and you get screwed. Anyway, back to interest. If you're writing a short story and you're not interested in it in any way, shape, or form, the reader will not be interested in any way, shape, or form. If you're writing nonfiction and it's just boring as fuck to you, you're bringing nothing to the subject and the reader is going to be bored. More recently, I've been doing a project which is very interesting to me, which has to do with Japanese literature. And I'm being paid to do this, and it just fucking bowls me over. I'm learning a whole new craft. And, well, not a whole new craft, but parts of it. And the way that the Japanese go about telling the story is one picture at a time, rather than how Americans go about it, which is one gesture at a time. Which, if you can see what I'm saying right there, is a little bit of fluff. So there's a lot of different development. Wait, get back to the story in the class. The story in the classroom. So I finished reading the story, and then what had happened all semester long was people were doing the basic old bullshit things, and they were going, oh, well, you spelled this word wrong on page 9, and, who the fuck cared? You weren't using the Chicago Manual of Style or this period or this comma. Fuck them. Fuck them. When they got to my story, they didn't know what to do with it, because there was a human strapped to his neck, chained to a post, trying to get outside of the fucking little circle of dirt that he was living in, and then people started talking about philosophy. Well, fuck, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, half the shit, if you go to a literature class and like when your professor starts burbling about all this bullshit that oh well, there's crossing the water and that water means death and fuck. I hate that shit because and this one episode of my life taught me that. I wrote a story. It was an inventive story about a guy tied to his neck to a post, being tended by essentially no one, where he wanted to reach something that was outside of that. It happened to be a bauble. There was a little gestures bauble on a stick. And he wanted to get to it, but he couldn't because it was outside of his little sphere of safety. He didn't realize it was a sphere of safety until, of course, he kept trying to lunge at this thing and get it. He wanted to get this thing, even though he didn't know what it was. But it was something that was outside of his circle. It was outside of what he knew. It was something new to him. So he lunged at it, and he lunged at it again. And finally the chain broke. Well, he fell outside of his circle, and he was in the grass. And all of a sudden, when he was in the grass, he realized he was outside of his circle. He became unfamiliar. He became panicked. He didn't know what to do. He didn't lunge then when he could have for the bauble that was within his reach at that point. He lunged back and jumped into his circle. And there, with the chain dragging behind his head, he circled his circle, just hoping that the bauble would come to him. Now, of course, looking back, I can see symbolism in that. Oh, yes, I can. But it was all accidental. Completely accidental. All I did was write. I wrote probably while hallucinating, and that was not due to drugs. It could have been a little bit of beer or wine. At that time, it was wine. I used to buy big gallon jugs of wine. And, finish my schoolwork, which is what everybody does, isn't it? Not exactly. But I finished doing, the story. I went through the whole thing. But to me, the most interesting thing was that they started interpreting something that I didn't overnight. I had no idea. Like now, looking back at it, sure. I mean, like I got the whole symbolism thing. Oh, okay. I wasn't thinking of it at the time. What does that mean? I was interested in writing what I was writing. I had fun doing it. I had fun doing it. Oh, did I have fun doing it? I was painting a picture, and it was fun. But what did people get out of that? They didn't get the same thing that I saw that they were getting out of other people's work. Other people's work was just like, oh, Cindy woke up. Oh, God, you're never going to hear the end of this. Cindy woke up from her slumber as the sunlight laid across her eyes through the slats of the curtain. Fuck you, and die. You don't know how many fucking thousands of times you're waking up your character with sunlight going into their eyeballs and not, at least being a laser beam and making their head explode. If you don't do that part where the head explodes, you're not fucking writing. I don't even remember where the bauble started. I really don't. It probably started with a slight description of, like how the guy was chained to the post, pretty much. Which, right there, like nailed Jesus to the cross. See, but I didn't do that. That wasn't the first fucking thing in my mind. And a lot of people will think, oh no, he was talking about Jesus being nailed to the cross. No, fuck no, fuck no, fuck no. Alright. Well, I guess my point is that you don't generally know what the reader is going to think about anything that you do. The only thing that you know is what you react to while you're writing, and what the basic importance of that is, and how does it feel as a story? Does it work as a story? Does it feel like it is? I'm not going to say generic. Is it organic? Does it feel like it's organic? That was another part of my master's thesis, the organics of writing. If it's not organic, and you're not writing something that is going to essentially resonate with a lot of people and make them think that there's something more there than just Shelley went to the supermarket to buy a loaf of bread, which is 98% of what I read in fiction. And then there's the other 1% where people just think it's all about language. It's neither. It's that 1% in between where you have a sense of story. You have an idea of what you want to say. You want to say something passionately. You want to convey something to an audience. You want to be me hitting the deadline and knowing that you have to convince someone to give you a very good grade, but not thinking so much about the grade as thinking about the quality of what you're doing. And that's all I was thinking about. I got very minimalist all of a sudden. Well, it wasn't all of a sudden. The whole story that I'd planned out was also minimalist. But the point was to get from here to there, and I had to get it done in one night. So, there's a lot of messages to get taken from that, but because I've been thinking about this whole Japanese fiction thing and the way that they go about picture by picture, I'm going to pose a question to those two people who view my video right now. Say you have a rock, and you know that rock, I mean, just like the post in my very brief recollection of that short story, and the person chained by the neck, and the bubble outside, and the event where the chain breaks. There's not very much else in there. Say you have a rock that you know is going to be important in the telling of your story. How do you introduce the rock? That'll tell a lot about like how you think about writing and whether you care or not about what you do. I'd like to hear responses. I'm sure I won't, and I don't think I'm to that point yet, but it's sort of getting around to it. I do have plans to do writing prompts and things like that when I finally figure out how to get minimal traffic to my fucking stupid channel. But I know a lot about this, and I've been thinking about it for 35 years or more, and it's made a deep impression on my life, and I'm sure it can make a deep impression on yours if you don't write vampire stories. That was a personal joke to my friend who already knows who it is. Anyway, thank you very much for your attention and time. This is pretty much as long as I go on a lecture, unless you really rile me up and I have to, turn into Lucifer. I would like to hear comments. I'm sure I won't. And whatever comments I hear, I'll respond to, or at least I will try to, at least in the beginning, before it becomes overwhelming, which it never will. I don't think so, because people don't like the fuck word, and I already know what my limitations are. So, what time do you think is most appropriate to stop at? Like right now, I'm at 25 minutes and 15 seconds. I could stop at 26, and then I'd be something more like, Jimi Hendrix died at 28, didn't he? I'm trying to think of who exactly died at 26, but somebody died. Obviously, somebody died within minutes of 26s or 27s. Now, 27 is a number that I bet on when I play roulette in Romania. But it's only an alternative to 23, 32, 23, 23. What the fuck were the three numbers that I used to play? 17. Ah, see, I missed 17 completely. 17, 23, and 32. Those are my three numbers. You play roulette on those three numbers and you do it the right way, you win every time. It annoyed my friends. But if you have a question about writing that you think I can answer, if you have a question about writing you don't think that I can answer, and that I encourage fucking even more, please confront me. Tell me what an asshole I am. Tell me who knows more about this than I do. While I'm writing the fucking books that your fucking influencers are selling to you that they can't write themselves. Tell me all about that. Tell me all about what you know. So I'm sick of fucking hearing this bullshit.